6:15 a.m. The email from HR hit my inbox. Due to restructuring, your base salary will be reduced by 40%, effective immediately. A hot, searing anger ignited in me. Just 2 days prior, the company had reached a $900 million valuation, all thanks to the system I had created. I am Maria, and my Lumina algorithm was the core foundation of this resounding success. Yet they had brazenly stolen my hard work. In their eyes, I was just a name to be crossed off a list. I went to the office, trying to maintain a calm demeanor, but inside, a storm was raging. I walked past familiar faces, colleagues who had once celebrated with me. No one said a word. They avoided my gaze, and I knew they knew what was happening. Their silence was worse than any lie. That afternoon, Sophia messaged me again. Unaware of my situation, she sent a photo of a party on the new engineering team's rooftop. Everyone was laughing and raising their glasses. Paid for with the money from my salary cut? I muttered to myself, looking at the picture with immense fury. That's when I understood everything. I wasn't invisible. I was just a tool to be discarded, and they didn't even have the decency to tell me to my face. Now, I saw the true faces of David, Michael Chen, and this entire company. The feeling of betrayal went far beyond simple anger. It was a deep-seated resentment, a smoldering fire that urged me to act. The game had changed. This was no longer just about a job. It was time for me to reclaim what was mine. The rage that had simmered for days now boiled over, fueling a cold, calculated plan. My fury wasn't a blind emotion. It was a catalyst. It gave me a new kind of clarity. I wasn't just angry, I was determined. They had tried to erase me, to make me a ghost in my own creation, but a ghost can still haunt. And I was about to become the most vengeful specter Cinco Wave had ever seen. My phone buzzed again. It was Sophia. "Maria, are you okay? You seem quiet." I hesitated, then decided to be blunt. "They cut my salary, Sophia, by 40%. There was a long pause on the other end. "What? No, that can't be right. I heard it was just internal restructuring. They wouldn't do that. Not after everything you did." "They did," I said, my voice as cold as the sea breeze outside my window. "And they used the money to pay for that party you sent me a picture of." A gasp. "Oh my God, Maria, I am so sorry. I had no idea." "It's not your fault," I replied, the bitterness in my voice slowly turning into a steely resolve. "But it's my problem to fix, and I have an idea." I started by methodically pulling on the threads of their lies. I reviewed every clause of my old contract, the one David had so casually dismissed with, "Ideas are cheap." I remembered the condescending smile on his face, the confidence in his voice as he assured me that my work was nothing without their platform. But he hadn't known my ace in the hole. The patent for Lumina, which I had filed with the U.S. Patent Office before I ever signed their papers. That document, sitting safely in a digital vault, was my shield. It was also my sword. The first step was to gather evidence, and for that, I needed to get back into their system. They had locked me out of most of the company's digital spaces, but in their arrogance, they had missed a crucial detail. My original developer token was still active. I had created it myself during the initial consultancy phase, and it was tied directly to Lumina's core functionality. It was an oversight, a tiny crack in their armor that gave me access to the very heart of their operation. Late at night, from the quiet solitude of my garret apartment, I logged in. My heart pounded against my ribs as the familiar interface of Lumina appeared on my screen. I wasn't just a former employee, I was still an integral part of their system. I sifted through the system logs, the database entries, and the code repositories. The proof was all there, laid out for me to find. They had rebranded Lumina as SyncoBrain, but the underlying code was identical. The data streams, the predictive models, everything was still running on my patented algorithm. I started downloading everything, creating a meticulous, ironclad file. Every log entry, every line of code, every internal memo mentioning SyncoBrain and its new features. This wasn't just about proving they stole my work. It was about showing they were actively using my patented technology without my consent. This was patent infringement on a massive scale, and it was the weapon I needed to bring them down. My rage was no longer a burning fire. It was a cold, calculated ice. I knew exactly what I was doing, and every keystroke was a step closer to my retribution. They had made me an invisible ghost, but soon they would feel the chilling presence of my haunting. The game had changed. I was no longer playing by their rules. The silence in my garret was a stark contrast to the chaotic whirlwind brewing in my mind. With the evidence of their betrayal now meticulously catalogued on my hard drive, my anger transformed into a cold, hard resolve. I was no longer just a wronged employee. I was an avenging force, and my first target was David. I needed to see his face when he realized his grand facade was crumbling. I called his office the next morning. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady. "This is Maria," I said to his assistant. "I need to speak with David. It's urgent." A moment later, I heard his voice, slick and condescending. "Maria, to what do I owe the pleasure? Last I checked, our restructuring was a one-way street." He chuckled, a sound that grated on my nerves. "It seems you forgot something in that restructuring," I began, my voice low and calm. "My patent." The line went silent. I could almost hear the blood draining from his face. "What are you talking about?" he finally stammered, the confidence gone from his voice. "I'm talking about Lumina," I continued. "The algorithm you've rebranded as SyncoBrain, the very core of your $900 million company. I have the patent, David, and I have the proof that you're using my technology without my consent." He recovered quickly, his tone shifting from shock to blustering anger. "This is absurd! You signed a contract. Everything you did here belongs to SyncoWave. The contract doesn't cover pre-existing intellectual property," I shot back, my voice unwavering. "And I filed the patent before I ever signed your papers. I own Lumina. You don't, and you're now in violation of a federal law." "You're making a huge mistake, Maria," he growled. "You're jeopardizing everything we built." "No," I countered. "You jeopardized it the moment you decided to steal my work and cut my salary to fund a rooftop party. You showed me your cards, David. Now I'm showing you mine." I hung up before he could respond, a small, grim smile on my face. The call was a declaration of war. But a war needed an army, and I couldn't fight this battle alone. I needed an ally, someone who understood the inner workings of SyncoWave, and, more importantly, someone who had seen David's true colors up close. My thoughts turned to Kenji, the former head of research. He had left SyncoWave a few months ago, citing creative differences with David. But I knew better. I had a feeling our differences were far more personal and rooted in the same ethical violations that now fueled my revenge. I tracked him down and sent a message, not through a corporate channel, but through a personal, secure line. The message was simple. "Lumina, I have the patent. We need to talk." I knew the risk I was taking. Kenji could have been loyal to David, but something told me he wasn't. And if he wasn't, he was the missing piece of my puzzle. My plan was taking shape, one calculated step at a time. The storm was gathering, and soon It would break over the gleaming tower of Cinco Wave. My offer reached Kenji at a time that was nothing short of perfect. The former head of Cinco Wave's research division had left with a broken heart, not just over strategic disagreements, but over watching David systematically dismantle the ethical principles the company had once espoused. He had been a silent observer, watching the rise and the moral decay of his old workplace from a distance. When my message landed, he was not surprised. We agreed to meet at a small, unassuming cafe near my coastal town, a place private enough for a conversation that would set the world right, or at least our corner of it. When Kenji walked in, he looked more weary than I remembered. His eyes still held a spark of his brilliance, but the lines on his forehead were deeper, etched with the stress of disillusionment. He sat down, not bothering with pleasantries. "I've been watching this unfold, Maria," he began, his voice low and serious. "I knew this day would come, but I didn't think David would go this far. He's always been an opportunist, but this is a new level of malice." I slid my laptop across the table, opening the folder that held all my evidence. "Do you remember the fundamental difference between the two algorithms, Kenji? What David calls Cinco Brain and my original Lumina?" He nodded, his face hardening. "Of course. Your Lumina was built on a decentralized architecture, prioritizing privacy and fairness. It was elegant. Cinco Brain was just a patch-up job, a quick fix to make it run faster, but it compromised every one of those core principles. It was reckless. He was cutting corners on ethics to boost performance, knowing full well it could lead to disastrous results down the line. I argued with him for weeks, Maria. He just wouldn't listen." "Exactly," I replied, the bitterness in my voice still raw. "And he did it without ever consulting me, or anyone on the research team. He presented it at that showcase as if it were a new invention, a breakthrough of his own. The nerve of the man is staggering." Kenji sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I tried to warn him. I told him that altering the algorithm like that would expose us to huge legal and ethical risks, the potential for biased outputs, for data breaches. It was a ticking time bomb." He just laughed and said, "Profit is paramount." That's when I knew it was time for me to go. I couldn't in good conscience be a part of that anymore. "And that's why I'm here?" I said, pushing the laptop toward him. "This is all the proof. The patent I filed, the system logs from my dev token, and the original code that proves Cinco Brain is just a modified, compromised version of Lumina. They're in violation of federal law, and I have everything I need to bring them down. This isn't just about reclaiming my work. It's about justice for every principle he trampled on." Kenji took the laptop and began scrolling, his eyes scanning every line of code, every numerical entry. The more he read, the harder his face became, a quiet fury building in his expression. He was seeing the full extent of the betrayal, not just against me, but against the very industry we both respected. Finally, he closed the laptop and looked straight into my eyes. "So, what do you want from me, Maria?" he asked, his voice low and intense. "Do you want to see them burn?" "I want to rebuild," I said, my voice filled with a fierce conviction. "A new company, founded on the principles we both believed in. A system better than Lumina, faster than Cinco Wave, and most importantly, completely honest and ethical. And I need you, your vision, and your experience to build it with me. We'll show the world what true innovation looks like." Kenji was silent for a long moment. He looked out the window, a pensive expression on his face, as he watched the waves crash against the shore. I knew he was weighing the risks, the challenges, the long road ahead. But he also saw the opportunity, the chance for redemption. Finally, he turned back, a ghost of a smile appearing on his face. "You've convinced me," he said. "David took away everything I believed in, and I want to see him fail. I'm in. Let's build a legacy he can never touch." "The name of the new company will be Lumencore," I told him, the name feeling like a promise. "And we are going to make it shine brighter than anything Syncowave ever dreamed of. This isn't just a comeback story, it's the start of a new era." With Kenji by my side, I no longer felt alone. Our partnership was a perfect blend of technical genius and corporate vision, two halves of a whole dedicated to a single, righteous cause. Kenji brought a wealth of market knowledge and managerial experience, the steady hand that would navigate the treacherous waters ahead. I, in turn, brought Lumina and the white-hot anger that fueled my every move, a fury I was learning to channel, to refine, and to wield as a weapon. We worked day and night in my garret apartment, transforming my rage into a fierce, unwavering productivity. We weren't just building a better algorithm. We were meticulously crafting a brand new comprehensive platform, one free of the ethical compromises that Syncowave had embraced, and, in doing so, had sealed its fate. Our first official step was to find an intellectual property lawyer who not only understood our case, but believed in it with the same conviction we did. After several interviews, we found Marcus, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney with a reputation for being as ruthless as he was brilliant. He listened to my story with rapt attention, his face impassive as I laid out the details of the betrayal. I showed him the emails, the internal memos, the patent documents, and the damning code that proved my work had been stolen and rebranded. When I finished, he simply nodded, a low rumble in his voice. "Maria," he said, "your case isn't just strong, it's a game changer for this industry. We have everything we need. The patent, the documented infringements. This is an open and shut case. We will send a cease and desist letter. This will be the first shot fired, a message that you will not be ignored." A few days later, a thick, cream-colored envelope, sealed with a formal legal stamp, was delivered to Syncowave's headquarters. I wasn't there to see the chaos it unleashed, but I received a frantic message from Sophia. "What's going on?" "The office is in absolute chaos. The legal team is running around like headless chickens, and David is locked in his office. He looks like he's seen a ghost." I smirked, a grim satisfaction spreading across my face. "Maybe he has, Sophia. Tell me more. What are they saying?" An hour later, my phone rang, the screen flashing with David's name. My heart pounded, a primal rhythm in my chest, but my hands were steady. I took a deep breath, the cold rage sharpening my focus, and answered. "Maria, what the hell is this?" His voice was a furious snarl, laced with a hint of panic I'd never heard before. "You know that letter is baseless. You signed a contract." "Baseless?" I shot back, my voice cold and mocking. "Are we talking about the patent I filed before I even set foot in your office, David? Or are we talking about the way you used my algorithm to violate the very ethical principles you publicly committed to? We can talk about both." There was a long, excruciating pause as he scrambled for a defense, his arrogant facade crumbling in real time. "You're making a huge mistake, Maria," he finally growled, his confidence completely shattered. "You're jeopardizing everything we've built, our investors, our clients. You're ruining everything." "No," I countered, my voice laced with a newfound authority that surprised even me. "You jeopardized all of that the moment you decided to steal my work and cut my salary to fund a rooftop party. You showed me your cards, David. Now I'm showing you mine. You had your chance to do the right thing, to respect my work, but you chose to steal it. Now, it's too late. I'll sue you! I'll ruin your career! He screamed, his voice reaching a fever pitch, the sound of a desperate man losing control. You'll never work in this industry again. I laughed, a cold, humorless sound that was more of a warning than an expression of joy. Try it, I said, a cruel smile forming on my lips. I have the proof, I have the patent, and I have a lawyer who loves a good fight. What do you have? Just a house of lies that's about to collapse. The game is over, David. You lose. I hung up, my heart pounding in my chest with the triumphant beat of a war drum. It was the moment of revenge, a feeling so sweet it was almost intoxicating. But this was only the beginning. The battle was won, but the war was still raging, and I had every intention of seeing it through to the bitter end, to ensure that the legacy of my work was one of justice and not of betrayal. The initial shock of the cease and desist letter had sent a seismic wave through Cinco Wave, and the aftershocks were proving to be just as destructive. David, consumed by his own arrogance and greed, had been caught in a legal trap of his own making. He couldn't legally continue to use the Lumina algorithm, which meant the entire core functionality of his company had to be shut down. The sleek, modern platform that had just earned them a $900 million valuation was now a hollow shell. As news of the patent infringement lawsuit spread through the tech world, a crisis of confidence erupted. Clients grew anxious, demanding answers that David couldn't provide. Investors, once so eager to throw money at the next big thing, began to pull their funds, their trust in David's leadership completely shattered. The polished facade of Cinco Wave was cracking, revealing the ethical wasteland beneath. Meanwhile, in the quiet sanctuary of my garret apartment, Kenji and I were a whirlwind of activity. My anger had transformed into a powerful, focused energy, and Kenji's quiet determination was the perfect counterpoint. We weren't just creating a knockoff version of Lumina. We were building a brand new, comprehensive platform from the ground up, one that was not only better, but was built with an unshakable foundation of integrity. We named it LumenCore, a symbol of the light and transparency we were bringing to an industry often shrouded in shadow. Maria, we have to move fast, Kenji said one evening, poring over code that glowed on my laptop screen. Cinco Wave's collapse is inevitable, and the market is going to be hungry for a replacement. This is our moment. We have the technology, we have the ethics, and we have the legal high ground. We just need a flagship client to prove it. My phone buzzed with an email from Aura Solutions. I looked at Kenji, my heart pounding. It's from them, one of Cinco Wave's biggest clients. They want to talk. Kenji leaned in, his eyes wide. This is it. They've heard the rumors. They're looking for a life raft, and we're the only ones who can offer them a better ship. We spent the next day preparing a live demo that was more than just a presentation. It was a manifesto. We showcased LumenCore's superior efficiency, its lightning-fast processing speeds, and, most importantly, its completely transparent and ethical data handling. During the video call, the CEO of Aura Solutions, a stern but brilliant woman named Helen, was direct and skeptical. What makes your platform better than Cinco Wave's? She challenged, her voice a sharp blade. David claimed he was the first to create such a technology, and now his company is in ruins. How can we trust you? Give me one reason why we should move our entire operation to an unproven startup. Kenji spoke first, his voice calm and professional. Cinco Wave's failure wasn't a technical one. It was an ethical one. They tried to patch an old, patented algorithm to fit their needs. We built LumenCore from scratch. It's a platform designed for the future, not a flawed relic of the past. Our foundation is built on trust, not on shortcuts. Then it was my turn. I presented a detailed breakdown of LumenCore's architecture, demonstrating how our system's decentralized framework guaranteed user privacy and prevented the kind of data manipulation that Syncowave had been guilty of. "We believe in transparency," I stated, my gaze locked on hers through the screen. "And the proof is in our code. We have nothing to hide because we have nothing to fear. LumenCore is not built on a lie, it is built on a promise." Helen was silent for a long moment, a thoughtful expression on her face. Then a slow smile spread across her lips. "I'm convinced," she said. "Syncowave just sent us an email confirming they're shutting down their platform. We're moving to LumenCore. Congratulations. Send the contract." The news was a bomb. When Aura Solutions, the industry titan, made their move, it created a domino effect that sent the rest of Syncowave's clients scrambling. Other major players in the market started reaching out to us, wanting to know about LumenCore's platform. The fall of Syncowave was now swift and absolute. David was left to face a painful, drawn-out lawsuit, his reputation in tatters. And in the heart of my garret, Kenji and I were well on our way to building a new empire from the ashes of what David had tried to destroy. The game was no longer about revenge. It was about building a legacy. The best revenge, I realized, wasn't just to win. It was to build something far better. Chapter 7. The Final Act. Syncowave's demise was swift and brutal. The domino effect that started with Aura Solutions' departure was now a full-blown avalanche, sweeping away any pretense of stability. David, in a desperate and pathetic attempt to salvage his crumbling empire, began calling me relentlessly. My phone buzzed with an endless stream of calls, each one a testament to his rising panic. I let them all go to voicemail, listening to the increasingly unhinged and desperate messages he left. His voice, once so full of arrogant confidence and condescension, was now laced with fear and a hint of pleading. He tried to frame our bitter legal war as an opportunity for us to reconcile and build something better together, a transparently laughable attempt to get his hands on LumenCore and my patented algorithm once more. "Maria, this is a mistake," he stammered in one message, his voice cracking. "We can fix this. You and I, we were a team. Don't let this spiral out of control. Let's talk about a settlement. Think about all the good we could do with our technology." His words, once so threatening, now sounded weak and hollow. He was no longer the all-powerful CEO I had once known. He was a desperate man watching his life's work turn to dust. And the most delicious part of it all was that it was all my doing. The cold, calculated revenge I had so meticulously planned was now playing out in real time. Meanwhile, Kenji and I were flourishing. We had moved our operation out of my cramped garret apartment and into a sleek, modern office space in the city, ironically just a few blocks from the Syncowave Tower. Our team was small but brilliant, a group of dedicated engineers and developers who believed in LumenCore's mission of transparency and ethical innovation. We were a stark, vibrant contrast to the bloated, ethically compromised machine that Syncowave had become. Our clients loved us, not just for our superior technology, but for our honesty and integrity. They saw us as the future, not just another company. One afternoon, I was on the phone with Helen from Aura Solutions. She was all praise for our platform, and her company's migration had gone flawlessly. "It's like night and day, Maria," she said, her voice filled with relief. "The performance is incredible, and honestly, it's a relief to work with a company that actually stands by its principles. We sleep better at night knowing our data is in good hands." "That's exactly what we set out to do," I replied, a genuine smile on my face. We believe that technology and ethics aren't mutually exclusive. They should be two sides of the same coin. The call ended, and I hung up, feeling a sense of deep satisfaction. This wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about building a better future, a future where my work and my principles could thrive. I was reclaiming not just my algorithm, but my reputation and my sense of justice. A week later, the news broke. Syncowave had officially declared bankruptcy. It was over. The company that had tried to steal my work and bury me was now nothing but a memory, a cautionary tale in the tech world. David's name, once a symbol of innovation, was now synonymous with failure and fraud. I felt a wave of emotions, not just triumph, but also a quiet, somber finality. The chapter of betrayal was closed. But there was one last act to perform, one final poetic piece of justice to be served. The grand finale was orchestrated not by me, but by fate itself, in a twist so poetic it felt scripted. The acquisition of Syncowave's remaining assets was a brutal affair, a feeding frenzy for vultures picking at the carcass of a fallen giant. To my profound surprise, the buyer was none other than Omnitech, a massive tech conglomerate that had been an early partner and investor in Lumencore. They had seen our potential from the very beginning, quietly investing in us and believing in our vision for a transparent and ethical AI. The acquisition was a brilliant strategic move, giving us access to Syncowave's valuable patents, its extensive client lists, and, most poetically, its prime real estate. The very tower from which David had once ruled. It meant that my new company, Lumencore, was now the official successor to the very empire that had tried to destroy me. My first day as the newly minted CEO of Lumencore, now a subsidiary of Omnitech, was an experience so surreal, it felt like a dream. Kenji and I walked into the former Syncowave headquarters, our small team following behind us, a mixture of awe and quiet triumph on their faces. I was given a tour of my new office, a space that was both familiar and foreign. It was the corner office. David's office, the very space where he had dismissed my concerns, where he had laughed at my principles, was now mine. The view of the city was breathtaking, a panorama of success I had earned with my own blood, sweat, and tears. But all I could think about was the profound, delicious irony of it all. This was not a victory lap. It was a quiet, solemn moment of justice, a final, definitive answer to every insult he had ever thrown my way. As I sat behind his old desk, the phone on the credenza buzzed. His name flashed on the screen. David. My heart gave a little jolt, a fleeting echo of the past, but I answered, a cold calm settling over me. Maria. His voice was a hoarse, defeated whisper, a shell of the man I once knew. I need to talk to you. I'm here. I'm in the lobby. I just want 5 minutes. Please, just 5 minutes. Kenji, who was sitting across from me, looked up, a silent question in his eyes. The look on his face was one of pure disgust at the mention of David's name. Don't do it, Maria, he mouthed, his jaw set. I ignored Kenji and spoke into the phone with a steady, confident hum. I'm sorry, but Mr. Chen has no appointment, I said to his new assistant. The assistant, now working for me, gave a look of understanding. I understand, Maria. I will tell him. I hung up the phone and looked at Kenji. He's in the lobby, I said. He wants to see me. Kenji shook his head, a grim smile on his face. Don't do it, Maria. There's nothing more to say. You've already said it all with your actions. He was right. There was no closure to be found in a conversation with a man who had shown me so little decency. I looked at the city below, at the bustling streets, at the new beginning I had forged for myself. The rage was gone, but a deep sense of satisfaction remained. And then, an idea, a final act of poetic justice came to me. It was the perfect, final word on the matter. I picked up the phone and called my assistant. "Please relay a message to the gentleman in the lobby," I said, my voice clear and authoritative. "Tell him that his compensation's been realigned." I hung up, a final, small, satisfied smile on my lips. The circle was complete. The ghost had returned, and now he was gone for good, leaving behind nothing but the echoes of his own demise. My story had come to an end, and a new one was just beginning. The acquisition of Syncowave by Omnitech wasn't merely a business transaction. It was the end of one era and the exhilarating dawn of another. Our small team, once toiling away in my cramped garret apartment, now found ourselves in the sleek, modern offices of what was once our oppressor. But this was no hostile takeover. It was a righteous reclamation. Lumencore, with its unshakable ethical foundation and revolutionary technology, was now the jewel in Omnitech's crown, and I, Maria, was at the helm. This was the ultimate revenge, not destruction, but creation. Kenji and I worked tirelessly to integrate our platform with Omnitech's vast resources. The process was a whirlwind of meetings, strategy sessions, and long nights of coding, but it was a labor of love. Every line of code we wrote, every new feature we developed, felt like a deliberate act of justice. We were no longer fighting for survival. We were building a legacy. The old Syncowave team was dismantled, but we made sure to extend offers to the talented, ethical engineers who had been forced to work under David's tyrannical rule. We built a new culture from the ground up, one based on transparency, collaboration, and a genuine belief in the good that technology could do. Our hiring process was ruthless in its focus on character as much as skill. We didn't just want good engineers, we wanted good people. "This is what it should have been from the start," Kenji said one evening, looking out over the city lights from our new corner office. The view was a constant, shimmering reminder of how far we had come, a stark contrast to the small, grimy window of my old apartment. A place where people are valued for their integrity, not just their output. A place where an idea can thrive without being corrupted. I nodded, a profound sense of peace finally settling over me. The white-hot rage that had once fueled my every move had dissipated, replaced by a quiet, fierce satisfaction. I hadn't just won a battle. I had built something far better than what I had lost. I had proven that ethics and success were not mutually exclusive. The news of our success spread like wildfire. Lumencore became the gold standard for ethical AI, and our platform was in high demand. We were featured in major tech magazines, not for our sensational rise from the ashes, but for our innovative and principled approach. Companies that had been wary of AI's ethical pitfalls were now flocking to us, eager to adopt a technology they could trust. We were changing the entire narrative of an industry that had long prioritized profit over people. Venture capitalists who had once scoffed at my naive ethical principles were now knocking on our door, eager to invest in our next venture. They didn't see a woman who had been wronged. They saw a visionary who had built a better way. I made sure to politely decline every single one of them. We were not for sale, and our principles were not for compromise. My phone rang one afternoon, and I saw a familiar name on the screen. Sophia. We hadn't spoken since before the collapse of Syncowave, and I hesitated for a moment before answering. The old wounds of betrayal and complicity, even if unintentional, were still there. But I felt a wave of empathy. She was, in her own way, a victim of David's manipulation too. "Maria, I'm so sorry. I should have done more. I should have seen what was happening," she said, her voice filled with regret and a palpable sense of guilt. It's okay, Sophia, I said, a soft, genuine smile on my face. You did what you could, and you gave me the information I needed to fight back. You were a part of this too, in a way. That picture you sent? It was the catalyst. Really? I feel so awful about it. I was celebrating with them, and they were celebrating taking from you. Her voice broke. Don't, I said gently. You didn't know. You were just a pawn in his game, like many others. But you were the pawn that showed me the board. Thank you for that. I saw the news about Lumencore and Omnitech. It's incredible. You did it, Maria. You really did it, she said, her voice now a mix of awe and relief. We did it, I corrected her, looking over at Kenji, who gave me a knowing nod. You, me, Kenji, we all played a part. The conversation was a moment of true healing, a closing of old wounds. I was no longer a victim seeking revenge. I was a creator, a leader, and a friend offering forgiveness. My journey had come full circle, and the future was brighter than I could have ever imagined. 3 months had passed since the official acquisition, and Lumencore was not just surviving, it was thriving under the umbrella of Omnitech. We had secured a number of major contracts, expanded our team with the brightest minds in the industry, and our technology was making a tangible, positive impact in the world. The ghost of Cinco Wave was a distant memory, a cautionary tale in our story of triumph. It was a story of redemption, not just for me, but for the very principles David had tried to bury. The anger and resentment that had fueled me for months had faded, replaced by a deep, quiet satisfaction that came from knowing I had built something real and lasting, something that stood for everything David's empire had not. I was in a meeting, reviewing a new project proposal for a global nonprofit, when my assistant buzzed through on the intercom. Maria, there's a package for you. It's from David. My heart gave a little jolt, a fleeting echo of the past, but the feeling was quickly replaced by a cold calm. Send it up, I said, my voice steady and unwavering. Kenji, sitting across from me, gave me a look of concern. He knew this wasn't just a package. It was a desperate, final attempt at communication from a man who had lost everything. A moment later, a small, unassuming box was placed on my desk. I opened it to find a single, engraved fountain pen. It was the same brand David had always carried, a symbol of his supposed authority and his inflated sense of self-importance. Taped to it was a note, scrawled in his once confident, now shaky handwriting. A gift, a peace offering. We both know this didn't have to happen. I'm sorry. I stared at the pen, a bitter, humorless laugh escaping my lips. A peace offering? This pen, this cheap, meaningless token, was his way of trying to buy absolution. He was still trying to buy his way out of the consequences of his actions, to whitewash the betrayal with a single, worthless gesture. But it was too late. He had lost everything, his company, his reputation, his credibility, and now he was grasping at straws, hoping that a token apology could somehow undo the damage he had done. It was the ultimate insult, and it only served to remind me of the man he truly was, a fraud, right to the very end. I took the pen and walked to the window of my corner office, the very window David had once gazed out of with such arrogance and contempt. I held it in my hand, feeling the cold, smooth metal against my skin. Then, with a flick of my wrist, I tossed it out, watching it fall into the bustling city below, a tiny, insignificant speck disappearing into the sea of humanity. It was a final, symbolic act of closure. I turned from the window, and my assistant buzzed me again. Mr. David is here, He says he has an appointment with you. I smiled, a cold, satisfied smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Tell him I'm busy. Tell him I'm in a meeting that will be running all day. A moment later, I heard the faint buzz of the intercom. My assistant's voice, crisp and professional, came through. Mr. David, Maria says she's in a meeting. She also asked me to relay a message to you. Compensation's been realigned. I turned back to Kenji, a look of profound finality on my face. The message was more than just a nod to my own words. It was a symbol of the new world I had built. A world where compensation wasn't just about money, but about justice, integrity, and a promise to those who had been wronged. I had not just won. I had redefined the game. My story was no longer about a woman betrayed. It was about a woman who had fought back and won, not with anger alone, but with principle, and in doing so, had created a legacy that would shine for years to come. So, what can we learn from Maria's journey? It's more than just a dramatic tale about a big company and a betrayed employee. There are some practical, real-world lessons in it for all of us. The biggest one is to protect your work. Maria was smart to patent her algorithm before signing her contract, and that legal document became her shield and her sword. This shows us that you can't just trust people's word, you have to get it in writing. Another key takeaway is that integrity is a powerful asset. David's company looked great on the outside, but it was built on lies, and that's what ultimately caused its downfall. True, long-term success comes from being honest and building something you can genuinely be proud of. Sometimes, the best strategy is to walk away to win. Instead of letting her anger take over, Maria stepped back to gather evidence and create a smart plan. Leaving a toxic environment isn't a failure. It can be the first step toward building something much better for yourself. Finally, the story shows us that the best revenge is building something better. Maria didn't just tear David down. She used her frustration to create LumenCore, a company that became the new standard for ethical AI. In the end, the most powerful way to respond to someone who wronged you is to build something so successful that their failure becomes irrelevant. It's a powerful reminder that standing up for yourself and your values can lead to a more rewarding outcome than you ever thought possible. Thank you so much for listening to our story. We hope Maria's journey of overcoming betrayal and building a new legacy was an inspiring one. If you enjoyed this tale, please consider following us for more stories filled with drama, suspense, and powerful life lessons. We have many more exciting narratives to share with you.